You're listening to Delenta Coaches Connect podcast. This podcast features the diverse perspective of a thriving global community of coaches, leaders, and experts sharing their captivating stories, journeys, expert advice, and more.
Hello, and welcome to Coaches Connect podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Jones, and today we have Rachel Hopkins, who will really be talking about creating meaning in your business. Rachel's journey to becoming a coach has been in the works for many years. She has had countless personal and professional experiences that she uses in the form of story and analogy to help her clients. Rachel was inspired to finally take the leap a couple years ago after listening to Amy Johnson's book titled The Little Book of Big Change. She was able to break a lifelong habit. Having earned 2 certifications, Rachel has realized that she is most passionate about helping people to improve their relationships. And of course, this always begins with a relationship that people have with themselves. So now let's welcome Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Great. Where are you calling in from today? Where do we have you?
I live in Indiana, which is right across the border from Cincinnati, Ohio. So just 12 minutes away, actually, from Ohio. So right here in Indiana, West Harrison.
Nice. So our guest today is from the U.S. and I'm from the U.S. as well. So I will say a quick belated happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you. You too.
So Rachel, so glad to have you here today. I was really inspired reading your bio and really just could not wait to ask you, after you read Amy Johnson's book and you said that you were able to break a lifelong habit, I wanted to know what that was.
Let's see, I think back when I was maybe 1 or 2 and my mom said that I started seeing fingernails, I went right away and was picking my fingernails and even biting my toenails.
Yeah.
I did give that habit up quite young, but
Yeah.
the picking of my fingernails and my fingers continued for years. And I actually quit smoking cigarettes before I turned 30. And I really believed that quitting smoking was easier than quitting picking. So it was after reading Amy Johnson's book that I was able to give up the picking habit as well.
And were you able to kind of decipher, you don't have to tell us exactly what that was, but decipher what was causing you to do that? Did the book get you to the core of what was causing you to pick the fingernails?
That's a good question. I think this is just me surmising and things
Yeah.
I've thought of over the years, but I believe that I was born nervous because I think my mom was a smoker for all these years, and also my mom's labor started early. I was she was given alcohol in the evening to slow her labor down.
Wow, back in the day, they did interesting things.
Yeah, back in the day. So I actually feel that I just had some anxiety or something from the moment that I was born, and that's, I believe, why it started.
Yeah, well, that's a cool little story. But I mean, that's a lot that you had to think about, right? Because you quit smoking, which was a habit that a lot of people can pick up, and then you were able to really hone into yourself to figure out there's still something else going on. And you decided to let me look into that. Let me lean into myself and figure that out a bit more. And in that journey, how did you decide to get into coaching?
So I'm considering coaching probably 10 or more years ago. I had a few conversations with friends about it. And, life takes hold and you're focused on what's right in front of you and you continue on. And so I think it was kind of a transition of sorts. I started off considering health coaching. And while I was in this group and I was talking to people, about habit change or whatever, say, hey, why don't you read Amy Johnson's book? And so I did. Actually, I listened to it on Audible probably 5 days in a row. So I heard it 4 times or whatever. And it just was so inspiring. And that was what actually prompted me to make the transition from health coaching into life coaching. I felt that I could make a bigger impact as a life coach than I could as a health coach.
Well, that's interesting because, for some people, when you think about health, some people it's really about the well-being of yourself. Some people think about health of, you're working out every day, you're eating right every day. What does that really consist of for those people that are listening when you say you're really thinking about the whole health aspect of coaching?
Well, I think what I realized was that I think everything starts with our minds. So when I was contemplating the health coaching, I thought, okay, I can help people lose weight. I can help people do this, that, and the other thing. But really, ultimately, I think it all begins in our minds, whether we're willing to get up and go to the gym every day, or whether we're willing to eat the right food and, ditch the wrong foods and stuff like that. So that's where I think I felt that I could make the biggest impact was by going into life coaching and helping people with their thinking instead of just focusing on the health coaching side.
Yeah. And when you're thinking about, getting people right with their thinking, what do you mean by that?
Let's see. So, well, there's so many levels, but one level is people are at the effect of their thinking, but they don't even realize it. They think they're at the effect of a traffic jam that morning, or they think that they're at the effect of, something that their boss said to them. But in reality, they're really at the effect of their own thinking. So helping people to manage that and work through that is ultimately where they can then begin with the strong habit changes, like how they show up in relationships or how they show up to work, how they, the things that they've been doing so habitually without even thinking about it. That's where I think all of that can, begin and then build that foundation and then actually make a difference for themselves.
Yeah. And so is this the niche that you're in? Are you in helping people really kind of get right with how they're thinking about their life, their relationship, their professional career? What aspect are you really helping your clients in?
I'd say that my, one thing that I'm passionate about is habit change, but I feel that I'm even more passionate about relationships. So when people are in a relationship, they've been in a relationship for 5 or 10 years, they've lost that spark, they're looking to, either get that back or, they want to leave that relationship and start with someone else or whatever. I'm really passionate about helping them to reignite that or reconnect or find what they feel that they've lost in that relationship.
Yeah. And what was that defining moment, or I guess I could say that aha moment that happened for you that allowed you to say, you know what, this is the lane that I want to coach in?
Yeah, this was, so I'm in a relationship, I'm in a marriage, and we've been together for just over 12 years. And I realized that there were some things that I was just not saying to my spouse. And over the past couple of years in this journey that I've been on, and we've been happy before, but now I think we're even closer because I took that step and I took a leap and I put my, what I was wanting first, not ahead of him necessarily, but I was putting out there what it was that I wanted instead of just keeping that to myself and not worrying about it and that kind of thing. So that was the defining moment, I think, for me, was probably in tandem with when I started this coaching journey, realizing that, I can speak up for myself and what it is I would like and, that kind of thing. And so I'm sure that we're closer and we've got a much better relationship now than what we did before.
Ah, I love that. I think sometimes we don't try to step outside of ourselves to kind of see what is our role in a relationship, or what is our role really in any kind of relationship, partnership situation, right? I think we as human beings can kind of go into things and thinking, well, it's them, or, this is going to be on what they're trying to do. And we're not always introspective to kind of sit back and have that self-reflection to say, how am I showing up? Am I present? Am I always coming with a guard up? And I think that was an amazing moment for you to say, you know what, if I'm having some of these thoughts, probably other people are having some of these thoughts. And so at that time, was there a really big shift for you that you had to make in terms of the types of people that you were coaching, or was it a simple, just a slower pivot for you to be like, okay, here's the focus of the group of people that I really want to coach now?
I don't think that there was a huge pivot. I mean, I really, I still feel like a relatively new coach, having coached since September of 2019. I still feel relatively new, and am happy, definitely work with people on a variety of topics. But so I think that it was a slower transition, that I'm in this lane now, but it's still relatively broad, I guess.
Still morphing into that definitive space. And that is something that happens for a long time. And you can get pulled into another direction. That's the exciting thing about being a coach, right? Is that you kind of have your idea of what you want to help people with, but sometimes the types of clients that you start getting may have a different thought for you. So that's beautiful that you are helping people with the thought of how are they in the relationship, helping people understand habit change, because that's probably a lot of why people are where they are in terms of relationships for them with themselves. And I thought that was very key on what you said in your bio, where you said, of course, this always begins with the relationship with themselves. And I feel like, would you say that's one of the hardest ones, the relationship with ourselves?
I do feel like it's the hardest one. I'll give you a quick example, but for people who are critical of other people, they want to break that habit of criticizing other people. They really need to stop criticizing themselves.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah, once they can start being more compassionate, it's an inside job. Once they can start doing that for themselves, then that will spread out and they can do that for others.
That's a deep one, because I think people, a lot of people don't want to go inward, right? We were just talking about that. It's very easy to look at other people. It's very easy to judge other people first before you judge yourself. And it's a hard look. Some people don't like to sit in a quiet space to really think about what is going on with me. I think it's so easy to look at other people's lives and say this and that about what's going on with someone else, instead of having that steadfast moment to say, okay, what's going on with me? What's going on with me? And, you brought up a point where you said, in terms of people really having to look at themselves first, and the words that we tell ourselves are so important. Words matter, right? And I think that people just can say, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But over time, the compounded sound of the words that you tell yourself do matter. And I'm sure you're seeing that in your clients. Either are you seeing things that happen from childhood that somehow, I know as coaches, we're not coaching the past, but a lot of people are who they are because of their experiences and things that have happened to them, right? So I was wondering, are you seeing people starting to realize, like when you're coaching with them, realize like, oh my gosh, this is something that's really been going on for a long time, since I was a child, or some experience that happens in high school or college or whatever. Are you seeing those types of things come out when you're talking to your clients?
Yes, I do see that there's some people who will be able to pinpoint an issue. Like, for example, one of my clients was able to go back really to a conversation that she had had with her mother when she was young. And once she realized the feelings that had carried with her all these years based on that conversation, she was then able to pivot and just kind of realize that she wanted to go in a different direction. And I think because of that, now she's got a different, more beneficial relationship with her mother than what she had for many years.
She finally had that moment. And I don't know about you, but I feel like sometimes people aren't either given the space or given the permission to have that moment with themselves and to feel okay to say, this happened.
Right.
You know, I think what you offer your clients and what we as coaches offer our clients are such a unique, safe space for them to be able to hear what's going on with themselves. And I'm an executive coach, so I'm so interested in what you're doing. So I don't want to get too deep into the weeds with you, but I'm just super excited about this whole habit change and relationship building and that kind of thing. So, pivoting a little bit and thinking about habit change and even relationship, like coaches a majority of us are, leading our own businesses. Right. Some people may work internally at corporations of being part of an HR unit, but a lot of us are entrepreneurs or solopreneurs doing our thing. Our topic today is about creating meaning in business. And so when we say that out loud, and as for what you do and looking at coaches globally, what does that really mean? Like creating meaning in your business, what would you tell us with what you're doing?
Well, for example, when I started my coaching journey and then I became a life coach, I did decide, because I'm still in corporate, I still have a corporate day job and I'm coaching on the side.
Nice.
So thank you. So when I started, when I earned my first certification, I finally got, the gumption, the will, the desire. I got brave to step out.
That's huge.
Yeah. I was really worried about it at first, but I stepped out and I told the head of HR that I had earned my coaching certificate. And, I would like to do something to be able to help my coworkers at work. And so we started some conversations. I was in conversations with other people at work and in the HR department, and we decided that I would start meditations. Ooh. And so we, were all set to go, and I hadn't started yet. And then COVID hit, and we all went home to work. And it was just really chaotic at first. And then, I decided, they said to me, okay, well, let's just wait until after we all come back to work, and then we'll meditation. So I was like, okay, well, they must have thought it would just be like a month or two and we'd all be back at work.
You and them and everyone else.
Right. And so I was at home and I just waited, I just kept doing my job every day. And then finally somebody from HR reached out to me and told me that the head of HR was thinking that we needed this now more than ever. So I did start monthly mindful meditations and have been doing that ever since. And it's just a great way to create meaning at work. Just find something that needs to be done and either take care of it or facilitate it being taken care of. And for people who are burnt out on jobs, it's just a great way to create meaning at work and you feel like you're part of something bigger.
Wow. For the simple fact that when you're saying, hey, I have this great idea, then COVID hits and they're like, we'll just do it when we come back. You were probably the one that was thinking, we probably need this before we come back. How did you have any kind of persuasion with them to get them to say, hey, let's do this? Or did they really come back to you on this point on their own?
I had no persuasion. I because they told me right before we all came home, they said, well, we'll just wait until we come back to work. And so I was, I mean, I'll be honest, when I came home, I was stressed out. I thought, oh my gosh, our lives are over and this kind of
Doom and
thing.
gloom. Doom and
Yes,
gloom. Yeah.
yes, it
Yeah.
was. And so then I realized, well, life continues on, and that's why I earned a second certification that same
Oh,
year,
wow.
because I'm not ready to give up yet. There's no end until the end comes. So anyway, I did go home and I just waited patiently, and then I think it was maybe I want to say about 3 or 4 weeks after we were sent home that HR turned back and said, hey, I think we need this now instead of waiting.
Yeah. And, there are two things that I heard in that was, one, the company had some things that they kind of needed to figure out. But two, Rachel learned some things about herself in COVID. And so in that moment when it felt like it was doom and gloom for you, what was one thing, if you can think of one thing that you really learned about yourself during this kind of chaotic, crazy time with COVID?
I'd say the one thing that really hit me at that time was to live life in the moment. I've heard, so many times that, just being here in the present, right this very moment, there's
Mm-hmm.
nothing wrong with me. I'm
Mm-hmm.
fine. Life continues, and until there is a reason to worry, then there's no reason to worry. So that's basically, I think, what, just kind of hit me that period of time was just that, be present, be in the moment. Everything is okay.
And that in itself is creating meaning, right? It's creating meaning. I think that worry causes so much stress for ourselves, right? And it was for the first time probably ever, or since maybe the flu, that everybody was in it together globally.
Mm-hmm.
This wasn't just you're sitting in Indiana or I'm sitting outside of DC and we're dealing with this only, right? It wasn't an earthquake in one country. It wasn't a flood. It was everybody was going through it together. So there was no one that you couldn't talk to that hadn't heard about COVID or that wasn't going through it or who wasn't losing someone in their family. And
Right.
so for you to find, being present, and it's very difficult when there's a lot of noise going on, being present, that is really meaning in itself. And that probably was able to propel you forward in your own business of realizing, you know what, I'm going to take a moment for myself. I'm going to kind of think these things through as well. But that's like a beautiful gift that you gave yourself. It was finding opportunity in a time that many people can't find it.
Yeah.
Right. And you were able just to kind of have that moment. And this whole meditative idea that you had probably worked well for you. But what have you seen in terms of changes for your company, in terms of doing meditation and how that's really helping your current business?
It's been amazing. At the company, just one woman hadn't been able to join the meditations for a while, and so like at all, I don't think. So finally, like maybe on month 6 or something, she finally, had the chance to jump in and do the meditation. And she wrote me afterwards, and she said, "Rachel, this is the calmest, most peaceful time I've had in a long time." And I didn't realize the impact that even just, taking an hour out of my month would have on anybody. And so I think once I kind of learned some of this and, did these meditations and, helped so many people, it actually helped me in my personal business with confidence and
Yeah.
knowing that, I can start something and do it and work through it. And if there's an issue, you deal with the issue when the issue arises.
Yeah. And having that person tell you that story of how you affected change, but also affected change for them is very powerful, right? That's why we do what we do, to help others, to let them succeed. And that was like real in the moment, you know, like feedback, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just kind of like, oh, I hope this is helping people. And this woman is like feeling the best she's felt in
Yes.
quite some time. And that is amazing. Creating meaning for people, whether it's in your business, whether it's a personal feeling that someone has. And I know create meaning is actually something that's probably even bigger for you. There was something that you had said in some of the papers that I read that you sent over. You had done something around create meaning for, I think it was for LinkedIn. Could you share a little bit about this whole, I don't know if it was a challenge or something that was going around this like hashtag create meaning?
Mm-hmm. Yes, LinkedIn had sent an email to some people. I don't know how they even thought to send it to me, but they sent an email out and asked us to write an article on, creating meaning at work. And so basically that's what my article was about, was, initiating this mindful meditation, these sessions at work, and them actually saying yes, and then just creating that meaning. Because even for myself, there have been times over the past 8 years or whatever that I've just, either felt uncomfortable at work. I didn't feel like I was making a difference. I, contemplated looking for something else, and, all this kind of stuff. And when you're having this kind of struggle, you can go in that direction and find something else, and then, get uncomfortable and find something else again, and get uncomfortable and find something, or you can just stick with it and create meaning right where you are.
Yeah.
And that's been the biggest difference.
Create meaning right where you are. What would be one of your biggest tips for people that are having a hard time figuring out how to start to do that? What would you say to people
who are having difficulty figuring out how to start in that direction?
Create meaning. Like, some people don't know how to do that. How did you decide, or what was your first step? Like something that could get someone moving forward to try.
Yeah, I think the thing with me, and I don't know if this will help, but the thing with me is I had learned that so many other people had taken a chance on me. And then by the time I approached HR, it was my turn to take a chance on me.
Wow.
So just kind of coming at it from that perspective, I think is what actually gave me the guts to go and approach the head of HR and say, this is what I'm doing now. I thought I would be fired. I thought they would say, oh, she wants to be a life coach now. Yeah, we don't need her around here anymore.
Crazy how you got caught in that assumption, huh? You got caught in that assumption, and it just kept playing and playing. If I say something, I may get fired. If I say something, I may get fired.
Yes.
And surprise, you weren't fired. You were actually welcomed with open arms.
Exactly. And so that's the thing, if somebody has something that they want to do and they don't do it, if you look at it from taking a chance on themselves from that perspective, to where I know I can make a difference in other people's lives. I just have something, I just have to take that first step. And then, a lot of times I think people, they hold off taking that first step because they're nervous, like I was. I did wait a couple of months before I finally said something to them.
Right.
But once you take that first step, you wonder, why didn't I do this sooner?
Right.
Right.
That whole Monday morning quarterbacking where you're like, oh, I should have, could have. And you can't think about that way. The way that you're saying it, the way that I'm interpreting you saying it is, start where you are. Start where you are. And it's okay wherever that is. Right? Yeah. Some people can't make a step, so maybe someone makes a crawl. Right?
Oh, for sure.
But lots of times people don't work on effective change or change in itself is because they feel it has to be grand. Has to be a big change, right? What are your
Right.
thoughts around that? If someone's like, well, I don't want to do it because it has to, what I'm going to do may not make a difference. What would you say to that person?
My thoughts are, I had I was seeing a doctor a while ago, a medical doctor, and some of the people in my circle were also seeing the doctor. And this doctor said to me one day, she said, you know what, you had a conversation with someone, I can't tell you their name, but you had a conversation with someone and you made a huge difference for them in their life. So my thing is, you don't have to make a difference on a grand scale. Just make a difference one person at a time, or, just with being who you are, being authentic, letting people see that, we are, having issues. Sometimes we're not all perfect. But just make a small difference. It doesn't have to be anything huge.
I love that. I love that. We are done with our time talking today. Before we go though, is there one last tip or one last thought or saying you'd like to leave our audience today?
Yeah. So it's something that's, I think, is really interesting. It was said by, wasn't said by him, but it was put in a play by William Shakespeare. It was the play Hamlet. And he said, for there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
That's deep.
Yeah.
That's a really good quote
to
end on. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your the opportunity to talk to you about what you're doing in the coaching world, and you being able to share some things that have worked for you, and also that whole idea around meaning. I just love. How can people find you? How can people find you?
Yeah, I have a website that I'm working on.
Okay.
It will be rachelhopkinscoaching.com.
Okay,
but it's
great.
not ready yet. But it will be ready hopefully by the end of this year. And then my email is creativecoachingsolutions@outlook.com.
Awesome.
Oh, and then of course on Facebook they can find me there as Rachel Meckley Hopkins.
Okay, and also you are on LinkedIn too, right?
Yes, and that's should be Rachel Hopkins, but the same picture they'll find me on Facebook. I've merged my pictures, so the same now.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's been a delight and joy to talk to you today. And I look forward to continuing to see your journey. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Really appreciate your time today.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. Make sure to follow us to catch more episodes of the Coaches Connect podcast.